The heavy, relentless ticking of the grandfather clock was the only sound that dared to break the suffocating silence of the Whitmore estate's grand study. Its golden pendulum swung back and forth, a cruel, indifferent metronome. Counting down the final painful seconds of Amelia Monroe's marriage, she sat at the grand, polished oak table, her trembling fingers tracing the sharp, unforgiving edges of the ivory divorce papers that lay in front of her. Her chest felt tight, a band of cold, hard steel, as she blinked away the hot tears that were blurring her vision. Have you ever been told you weren't good enough? Judged not for who you are, but for where you come from. Today's story is about a woman who was brutally cast out by her powerful, wealthy in-laws, who saw her as nothing more than a stain on their perfect family name. But they were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. They didn't just break a marriage, they awakened a sleeping giant. If you believe in the quiet, unshakable power of a woman's strength, and the idea that our past does not define our future, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder of their own worth. Across from her sat Margaret Whitmore, her voice calm yet dripping with a quiet, venomous cruelty, cut through the silence. "You have embarrassed this family for long enough, Amelia," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "It is time for you to leave, quietly, and with whatever shred of dignity you still have left." Amelia's heart pounded so loudly she could hardly hear, a frantic, trapped bird beating against the cage of her ribs.
Ow.
2 years ago, her life had been a fairy tale. She had been swept off her feet by Daniel Whitmore, the charming, handsome, and ambitious heir to the vast Whitmore fortune. He had been different then, or so she had thought. He had been warm, he had been loving, and he had been just rebellious enough to make her believe that he would stand against his own family's cold, suffocating elitism. When Daniel had first brought Amelia, a beautiful, intelligent black woman, from a modest middle-class background into the grand, cold halls of the Whitmore mansion, for the first time, she had felt the immediate, chilling sting of Margaret's icy smile. "A woman like you," Margaret had told her in private that very first night. Her words, a quiet, polite, and devastating declaration of war, could never, ever truly understand our world. But Amelia had tried. Oh, how she had tried. She had endured. The hushed, cruel whispers at the endless society parties. She had weathered the condescending, backhanded remarks about her appearance, her accent, her so-called lack of sophistication. She had smiled through the casual, cruel dismissals. She had done it all because she had loved Daniel. She had loved him enough to stay. Till now she was hoping, pleading, for some small sign of the man she had married, the man she still loved. But the man who turned to face her was a stranger. The words, so cruel and so unjust, hit her like a physical slap. Margaret leaned forward, her own voice now a low, cutting, and triumphant sound. "You were never right for him, Amelia. You do not belong in this family. You do not belong in this world. Now sign the papers.
Ow.
And we will make sure that you are compensated, ... enough to start over again, somewhere far, far away from here." Amelia stared down at the expensive, gold-tipped pen that lay on the table. Her mind raced. "If I sign this, I lose everything. The man I love, the future I so foolishly dreamed of. But if I don't..." She looked up, one last desperate pleading. Time at her husband. His eyes hardened. The last small flicker of the man she had once loved was now completely and irrevocably gone. And that was it. That was the final blow. Amelia's tears fell freely now, hot, silent tears of a profound and very final heartbreak, leaving dark, wet stains on her simple, cream-colored blouse. Her hands shook violently as she finally, and with a great shuddering breath, picked up the pen. The grand, beautiful room felt smaller now, the walls closing in on her. "They want to erase me," she thought, "as if I were nothing, as if I never mattered." But deep down, in a small, quiet, and still and broken part of her soul, another voice. A voice she had not heard in a very long time, whispered, "You will show them. One day, you will show them all." With a final, ragged breath, she signed her name. Daniel flinched. Richard Monroe, Amelia's father, then calmly pulled out a thick, Believe you are familiar with the concept of debt? He said, his voice a smooth, almost gentle sound that was far more terrifying than any shout would have been. I am buying out your company's entire outstanding debt, effective immediately. Monroe Holdings now owns a controlling interest in Whitmore Industries. Margaret's mouth fell open. You can't, she stammered, the words a weak, pathetic. Protest! Oh, I can, Richard interrupted smoothly. And I have. But don't worry, he added, a hint of a cold, ironic smile touching his lips. We'll be keeping you on as advisors. Under new leadership, of course. Amelia tilted her head slightly, her calm, regal gaze sweeping over her ex-mother and her ex-husband. Consider it, she said, her voice a quiet, powerful echo of his. My way of ensuring that no one else ever has to suffer the way that I did in this company. As the full, crushing reality of their new situation finally began to sink in, Daniel stood up abruptly, his own voice a desperate, pleading sound. Amelia, wait, please. I was wrong. I was a fool. I let my mother influence me. I never stopped loving you. Amelia's lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. Love is not silent when the world is tearing you apart. Daniel, she said, her voice now full of a quiet, hard-won wisdom. Love does not just stand by and watch you drown. His voice cracked. Please, he whispered. Just give me one more chance. Amelia shook her head, slowly, and with a final, heartbreaking sadness. I gave you all the chances in the world, Daniel. And you taught me a very valuable lesson. Sometimes love is not enough. Margaret's voice was a harsh, desperate whisper. Now, you think you're better than us, just because of your father's money? Amelia met her gaze with an unflinching and almost pitying calm. No, Margaret, she said. I'm better than you because I learned how to value people. Not for their wealth, not for their status, but for their hearts. That is a lesson you have never understood. Amelia turned to leave, her heels clicking against the marble floor, like the final closing notes of a long, sad symphony. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back one last time. Thank you, she said softly. Daniel frowned, his expression a mask of pure, uncomprehending confusion. For what? He asked. For teaching me, she said, her own voice now strong and clear and full of a beautiful, unbreakable power, how truly and remarkably strong I really am. That evening, Amelia sat on the balcony of her father's estate, a quiet, peaceful smile on her face. As she looked out over the glittering city skyline, her phone buzzed. It was an email from the now-restructured board of Monroe Whitmore Holdings. Congratulations, Amelia Monroe. As of today, you are officially the new CEO. She smiled, her tears this time not of sorrow, but of a quiet, powerful, and very well-earned pride. Amelia had lost everything once, but she had rebuilt herself, not as a Whitmore. Not as someone's wife, but as her own woman. Strong, powerful, and free. And she would never, ever let anyone take that away from her again. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more powerful, emotional, and surprising stories from Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our global community. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and stay inspired.